is in the biology sections of the topic physiology of the plants. In physiology, we have already completed plant growth and development and the photosynthesis in higher plants, and the twin subject of photosynthesis is respiration in higher plants. So this is the 14th chapter of the physiology or the biology part, where it is respiration in higher plants. So in photosynthesis we have studied there is synthesis of food. Food is prepared by the plants with the help of light and chlorophyll. So the next part is what happens to that food. So how that food is being utilized by the animals or the plants, and what processes are involved where the food is being digested or it is being converted to form or to release the energy. We all know that we require energy to do the work, and that energy we get from the food that is being consumed. So according to that, the plants are autotrophic. With the help of light and chlorophyll, they are able to synthesize their food. But animals are heterotrophic, who depends upon the plants. But in both the plants and animals, they require the energy to carry out the living activities or the metabolic actions. So that breaking of the food components, where the food particles are being broken down. It is being broken down, the food substances are being broken down to release the energy. We get the energy by consuming the food. Food is a nutrient or a nutrition that provides energy to us. Even the plants, though they don't have well developed organ systems like liver or stomach or heart, even in plants also there is a process of digesting the components, while in plants it is a complex process where the 6 molecule of glucose is subjected to or is being broken down into simple molecules with the release of the energy. So first we will go with the definition of respiration. What is actually the respiration in the plants, that is especially in higher plants. Even animals also respire, where we require oxygen. Oxygen that is present in the atmosphere is absorbed by the lungs in the animals, and the lungs absorb the oxygen, passes to the hemoglobin, where it becomes oxyhemoglobin by the red blood cells, and this oxygen is circulated through the veins to different parts of the body or to each and every cells. But plants don't have such well defined organelles, but there is a complex breakdown of the food. The food is being broken to release the energy. So first we will go with the definition. What is the definition of respiration? How we are going to define the respiration? So definition of respiration. Breaking of carbon-carbon complex compounds within the cell. It's a process of breaking of carbon-carbon complex compounds within the cells, leading to the release of considerable release of considerable amount of energy by oxidation. By oxidation, or you can take in another form also, breaking of complex compounds by oxidation with the release of excess amount of energy or considerable amount of energy. Or the another alternative definition is, it is a process of oxidation of complex carbon compounds within the cell with the release of considerable amount of energy. We can go with any of these definitions where the meaning gives a slight change in just the simple and the process, that is breakdown of carbon complex compounds within the cell, leading to the release of a considerable amount of energy by the process of oxidation, or it is a process of oxidation of complex carbon compounds within the cell with the release of considerable amount of energy. And this process of respiration, especially in plants, it occurs in the cytoplasm and mitochondria. It occurs in the cytoplasm and the mitochondria. In photosynthesis, we have seen that a 6 molecule of carbon dioxide and 12 molecules of water in the presence of light and chlorophyll will lead to the formation of glucose, a carbohydrate, with the release of water and oxygen. This is the equation of photosynthesis. Now, what happens here? The product that is being formed during photosynthesis is a carbohydrate, or it is a 6-carbon hexose sugar. Now, this carbon hexose sugar, that is the glucose, has to be broken down into a pyruvic acid. It is being broken down into pyruvic acid. So, here the glucose is a complex molecule. It is a complex molecule with the help of oxygen, or the glucose undergo oxidation. It undergoes oxidation. It is a complex molecule where it undergoes oxidation to form pyruvic acid, which is a simple molecule. Where a complex molecule, a hexose sugar, that is glucose, which undergo the process of oxidation to form a simple product, simple compound, that is the pyruvic acid. So, here the definition is what? Here the complex compound, that is the glucose that is being produced, and stored in the plants or in the body is being oxidized, and this oxidized complex compound is broken down into simple compounds with the release of energy. Energy is being released by oxidation of the food particles. So the food particles, when they react with the oxygen, they release excess amount of energy. They release the energy, and this energy is in the form of ATP. Yes, the food substances that releases the energy, and that energy is nothing but adenosine triphosphate. Then here, by photosynthesis, the food is being prepared and it is being stored. The next part is what happens to the food is the process of respiration. So the food that is being prepared is being oxidized, and that is being oxidized, a complex component is oxidized to form pyruvic acid with the release of energy, and that energy is used by the cells to carry out all the metabolic activities. So here the ATP, there are different processes for the synthesis of ATP molecules. As we have studied that during the process, the ATP are being synthesized. Before that, we will try to know that what are respiratory substrates. What are respiratory substrates? The complex food components which undergo the oxidation, are called as respiratory substrates, or we can say that the complex compounds which undergo oxidation are the respiratory substrates. The complex food components or the complex compounds which undergo oxidation are the respiratory substrates. Examples are proteins, fats, and the organic acids. Yes. So this oxidation process, where the food particles are to be oxidized, also requires energy. Yes, that energy is being provided by ATP molecules, and the process of synthesis of ATP molecules is known as phosphorylation. So here ATP molecules are to be synthesized, where it uses the energy in the form of ATP. Here this ATP, it is called as the energy currency of the cell. ATP is well known as energy currency of the cell, or it is also called as the coins of the cells, where it can be synthesized by the processes, and those processes are known as phosphorylation. Phosphorylation, where adenosine diphosphate combines with inorganic phosphate to form ATP. Yes, so phosphorylation, by phosphorylation ATP is synthesized, where a component adenosine diphosphate combines with inorganic phosphate to form adenosine triphosphate, and if this process occurs in the presence of light, as we have studied in photosynthesis, is called as phosphorylation. Photophosphorylation, where adenosine triphosphate in the presence of light, synthesis of ATP occurs, where we have studied in the cyclic and non-cyclic photophosphorylation. This process in the topic of photosynthesis, we have studied that photophosphorylation, where light is used for the synthesis of ATP, where in the presence of light, adenosine diphosphate combines with inorganic phosphate to form ATP. Then, this is in the photosynthesis, but in respiration, it is oxidative photophosphorylation, where there is synthesis of ATP by the process of oxidation. By the process of oxidation. So here synthesis of ATP occurs in three ways. One, a simple phosphorylation process. In photosynthesis, in the presence of light, it is photophosphorylation, and during respiration, that is oxidative photophosphorylation. So here the ATP is used also in this process. ATP is synthesized, ATP is utilized, and even ATP is being released. In photosynthesis, we have seen that in the first part of the light reaction, ATP is synthesized, while in the dark reaction, it is being utilized for the synthesis of glucose. Here, the ATP molecules are also both phosphorylation occurs in both photosynthesis and respiration, while in respiration it is also utilized and even the ATP is being released. So here the respiration, it is a complex process. It is a complete breakdown of the glucose molecule, where the compound, the hexose sugar, which is a 6-carbon compound, is stepwise broken down into simple components. As it is broken down into simple components, lastly it will help in the release of energy. That energy, that process occurs in the half of the process occurs in the cytoplasm, while the other half process occurs in the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, we know that mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell, where ATP are being synthesized. So in respiration occurs in both the cytoplasm and in the mitochondria. So here there is phosphorylation process which is common to both photosynthesis in and respiration. While in respiration, it is referred as oxidative phosphorylation, where there is oxidation. It is synthesis of ATP that occurs by the process of oxidation. So, if you go with respiration, there are two types of respirations: aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So, what are respiratory substrates? The food substances or the complex compounds which undergo the oxidation are known as the respiratory substrates. Those are nothing but the proteins, fats and the organic acids. So, here I said that both plants and animals, in order to release energy, the food substances undergo the process of oxidation. This oxidized food, the food substance that get oxidized and releases the energy, are the respiratory substrates. So there are two types of respirations. One is aerobic respiration and the other is anaerobic respirations. So the types of respirations is aerobic respiration. What is the equation of aerobic respiration? Glucose molecule undergo oxidation to produce So what is aerobic respiration? It is a type of respiration where the complex glucose molecule undergo oxidation to release carbon dioxide and water with the release of 36 ATP molecules, that is nothing but 686 kilocalories of energy. So here in this process of aerobic respiration, a complex molecule of glucose reacts with oxygen, or it gets oxidized to release carbon dioxide and water with the energy. How much amount of energy is released? 36 ATP molecules, that is equivalent to 686 kilocalories. Where the respiration uses oxygen for breaking down of the food, where food is being broken down in the presence of oxygen, and those animals which require oxygen for the breaking down of food substances or oxidation of food substances are called as aerobes. That is, all the animals require oxygen to break down the food substances. So this process where there is breaking down of food substances or complex components to release energy, or the food is being oxidized to release energy in the presence of oxygen, is known as aerobic respiration. While another is anaerobic respiration. So there are two types. One is aerobic respiration and the other one is anaerobic respiration, where the complex molecule is broken down into it is a type of respiration which occurs in the absence of oxygen. Absence of oxygen. During this process, oxygen is not required, where the glucose molecule is reduced with the help of the enzymes to form ethyl alcohol with the release of 2 ATP molecules, totally 56 kilocalories of energy. Yes, with the release of carbon dioxide. There is a release of carbon dioxide also. It is a process where the food particles are being broken down in the absence of oxygen. So if you just simple say, if for this we can go with a simple example for formation of curd, which is also a fermentation process, or the formation of dough for idli and dosa, where the vessel or the component, the curd that is being prepared is being closed, the vessel is being closed, where that indicates that it does not require oxygen. The milk sugar, that is lactose, is converted into the lactic acid or the curd. Formation of the or curdling of the milk can be a good example for anaerobic respiration, where the milk, the lactose in the presence of lactic bacteria or lactobacillus is converted into lactic acid. That process is the fermentation process, which occurs in the absence of oxygen. Or you take the preparation of the alcohols, where there is formation of the alcohols or the alcoholic drinks, where the cane sugar or the grape sugar is converted into alcohol with the release of carbon dioxide, and during this process only 2 ATP molecules are being produced, that is equivalent to 56 kilocalories of energy. Now in these two processes, in both of these processes, aerobic and anaerobic, the complex exhaust molecule, glucose molecule, is broken down to simple components like carbon dioxide and water, here ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. Yes, in both the processes, the first process is known as glycolysis, where the complex glucose molecule in the presence of the enzymes is converted into pyruvic acid. A 6-carbon compound molecule is converted into 2 moles of 3-carbon compound, and that process is known as glycolysis. While glycolysis is the common process for both aerobic and anaerobic. So we'll go with the equation and find out what is the definition of aerobic respiration. So in respiration there are 2 types, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respirations. In aerobic respiration, there is the process of breaking down of the breakdown of complex glucose molecule into ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide with the release of 2 ATP molecules is known as anaerobic respiration. First, we will deal with anaerobic respiration, then later on we will go with aerobic respirations. So, in anaerobic respiration, there is formation. In this anaerobic respiration, the pyruvic acid is being formed, that is, the glucose is converted into pyruvic acid, and this pyruvic acid is subjected in 3 ways. It is subjected into 3 ways where it is still broken into simple components, and those are aerobic respiration, then alcohol fermentation, so the process of glycolysis, glucose is converted into pyruvic acid, and this pyruvic acid by 3 ways, it is subjected by 3 ways or methods where it is still broken down into simple components, and those 3 ways are aerobic process, alcohol fermentation, then lactic acid fermentation, where these 2 are anaerobic process which occurs in the absence of oxygen. Aerobic process, pyruvic acid, when it is subjected to aerobic process where it get oxidized, that process is called as with the release of energy, that is oxidative phosphorylation. In anaerobes, there are 2 processes. One is alcohol fermentation and the other is lactic acid fermentation. So, there is a graph, there is a schematic representation to show the major pathways that are involved in anaerobic respiration. So, we will go with the schematic representation of anaerobic respiration or the process of fermentation. I will first deal with anaerobic respiration, then we will go with aerobic respiration. We know that glycolysis comes first, but let me deal first with anaerobic respiration, that is in both the processes. In both the processes of aerobic and anaerobic, the common process is the process of glycolysis, where the complex glucose molecule is converted into a simple 2 molecules of pyruvic acid. So, we will represent, and that later on it is that pyruvic acid, it depends upon the pyruvic acid to which process it is being subjected. When it is undergoing the process in the yeast cells. In the yeast cells, it is with the help of the enzyme zymase, it will form the ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. If it is undergone by the bacteria, if bacteria are involved in the process, then it leads to the formation of the lactic acid. So, that process of a simple, it can be explained by a simple schematic representation where the glucose, when it is converted into pyruvic acid, what happens to the pyruvic acid. So we'll go with the major pathways. First we'll deal with anaerobic respiration, that is the schematic representation of major pathway. What are the major pathway? There is a major pathway of anaerobic respiration, where the glucose is converted. So this is a schematic representation of major pathways of anaerobic respiration, where the glucose is converted into glyceraldehyde, phosphate, with the help of NAD molecules. It is, I will draw once again to make it represent in a systematic way in a line, where glucose molecule is converted into glyceraldehyde, phosphate. This utilizes NAD molecules to form so it's a pathway of anaerobic respiration. First, the glucose is converted into glyceraldehyde, phosphate, which uses the NADP molecules. And this NADP molecules, the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, the phosphate group. First is glucose is converted into glyceraldehyde, then the glyceraldehyde phosphate, when it reacts with NADH, it forms 3-phosphoenol pyruvic acid or phosphoglyceric acid, which again gets converted into phosphoenol pyruvic acid. Phosphoglyceric acid is again converted into phosphoenol pyruvic acid. This pyruvic acid can form lactic acid, or ethanol, the release of carbon dioxide. So it's a major pathway of respiration. And the common process in both aerobic and anaerobic is formation of pyruvic acid. So in this schematic representation, the glucose is converted into glyceraldehyde. Glyceraldehyde reacts with NADH molecules to form phosphoglyceric acid. Then the phosphoglyceric acid is converted into phosphoenol pyruvic acid, which is converted into pyruvic acid. Now this pyruvic acid, if in this process, if the pyruvic acid is subjected with, or if it reacts, or the process occurs in the yeast cells, it helps in the formation of ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide, where there is synthesis of alcohol, there is formation of the alcohol, or the grape juice, or the formation of the process of formation of the drinks like whiskey or the brandy, where the pyruvic acid, when it is subjected by the yeast cells, then it forms the ethyl alcohol, or if it is subjected or the process undergoes by a bacteria, then it forms the lactic acid with the utilization of NADH molecules. So this pathway shows that there is conversion of glucose into pyruvic acid. This whole process is glycolysis, and the end product of glycolysis is pyruvic acid, which can go the alcohol fermentation. If it is formation of alcohol, ethyl alcohol, the process is known as alcohol fermentation. If it is subjected in the bacteria or conducted by the bacteria, it forms the lactic acid, and that is lactic acid fermentation. So in this video we have seen the definitions of the respirations. Then what are the types of respirations? In these types it is aerobic and anaerobic, and in both of these processes, I like to repeat it, the common process is glycolysis. By the end of glycolysis, pyruvic acid is being formed, which is a simple molecule when compared to glucose. Glucose is a 6-carbon compound, a complex molecule, and that is being broken down into simple molecule, that is pyruvic acid. This is a short representation of the process of glycolysis, where the glucose, which breaks down to form many intermediate products and form the pyruvic acid. So in anaerobic there are two processes, alcohol fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. So this process is alcoholic fermentation, where there is formation of ethyl alcohol with the release of carbon dioxide, while this process is lactic acid fermentation. By the bacteria or the muscle cells. To form the lactic acid. So in this part of the video, the questions are the 1-mark questions. What is respiration? Second is, what are respiratory substrates? Give example. Then the third question for 2 marks is, define the types or what is respiration. Explain the types of respirations, where you have to explain aerobic and anaerobic respiration. with the equations. Then what is glycolysis? It is a process where it is a process where the complex food substances are broken down into simple components that will be dealt in the next class. And the major pathways. So in both aerobic and anaerobic, the first common process is glycolysis. That glycolysis process, that when it is subjected to anaerobic process, those anaerobic processes are alcohol fermentation and lactic acid fermentation. So in the next class, we will deal first with alcoholic fermentation, lactic acid fermentation, and then go to the process of glycolysis. So until then you have to practice this. You go to the schematic representation of the anaerobic pathway, the major pathway of the anaerobic respiration. It's a 3 marks questions that is usually being asked. So thank you. We will meet with in the next class, continue with the alcoholic fermentation and lactic acid fermentation and glycolysis.